Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online news video update with me, Sherman. Today guys, we got the Scalebreaker update, of course, and update 23. This is a continuation of the update 23 patch notes on combat and abilities, so bear with me. Sorry I had to split the videos, but I didn't want them too long. So moving through the combat and ability changes, starting with the general stuff. Increase the duration of off-balance effect on all of its player sources to 7 seconds from 5 seconds to improve the window it may be interacted with. Note, we are still investigating additional message improvements to help make it more obvious when it activates. So this will help players be able to get the interaction with off-balance with resource return, and on top of that, their ability to do damage. So this is kind of an interesting change, but it helps improve the overall group experience, so I like that. Alright, all players' sources of bleeds will now respect a target's physical resistance. Many adjustments have been made to ensure bleeds deal similar damage to other standard damage over time effects, and they kind of explain why this change was done to reduce the volatility or of effectiveness of these abilities in PvE and PvP. Ignoring mitigation was detrimental to this due to the high swings of character optimization with varying builds, while also being static while fighting monsters, leaving many dead zones and problem spaces. We are aware of the concerns of high mitigation that is currently obtainable in the game, and we've targeted some other areas such as oblivion damage to offset the loss of these tools. You will no longer become stuck sprinting, and if you've managed to be associated or accosted by a guard, while sprinting, even though it was perfectly terrifying. Ground target abilities will now be unqueued after weapon swapping. This should help reduce situations where you become stuck casting one of these abilities, such as Grand Healing or Lightning Splash. Fixed numerous instances where well-timed ability uses from charges, leaps, teleports, blinks, and pulls could allow you to bypass collision. Many damage over time abilities, both single target and area of effect, have been re-standardized to follow similar behaviors to other types of area of effect dots, or other ability types. Area of effect dots will now be 33% weaker than a single target counterpart and will cost 30% more, just like direct damage AoEs versus single target ones. And they kind of give a thing here. The duration of these overtime effects are equated into their total cost per second, rather than simply following a base is a dot. Catch all costs. You can expect to see many adjustments to abilities of this nature in this update. We've also rebalanced more of these ability types in the game to help all classes gain access to sources of them and reduce the situation where abilities were being merely used for passive slots. Adjusted the animation and cast times of many ultimates that are meant to have high impact to better synchronize their attacks to their animation. These abilities cannot be interrupted, and canceling them or being stopped while casting will not consume your ultimate. This affects the following abilities, and then they list them off here. Yeah. So improve the responsiveness of leaving a CC breaking knock-up and a knockback abilities to increase the standard range of knockback to 8 meters from 6 meters. Fix numerous issues where area of effect based damage over time abilities were being considered direct damage in some circumstances. They will now be treated as damage over time. This will also help their tooltips reference proper modifiers such as Thaumaturge. Pets will now properly gain extra 5,000 health from Battle Spirit rather than having their max health increase by 5,000 but not healing for the difference. They also fixed the issue where default telegraphs on area of effect abilities would occasionally not appear in some PvP areas. Sources of stamina health and magic cost reduction that are obtained from passive abilities or item sets are now multiplicative, whatever, rather than being a mixture of additive and multiplicative. This was done for a more streamlined behavior across the board and limit the opportunity to reduce an ability's cost to 0 by stacking multiple sources of cost reduction. Below is a list of affected sources that have had adjustments made to them since they were ultimately increased the cost of abilities when using multiple sources of cost reduction. Restoring Spirit increased the rank of increased the cost of rank 2 to 5% from 4%. Unhauling Knowledge increased the rank cost at rank 2 to 6% from 5%. Vampire Lord increased to 6% from 5%, and Armor of the Seducer increased to 10% from 8%, and Eyes of Mara increased to 15% from 12%. It's good, but I think there's still a few sets I need to look at, and they did say they were going to do that. So, resource agnostic sources of healing will now use the highest crit strike chance rather than defaulting to your spell critical only. Resource agnostic refers to abilities that utilize only your maximum health to scale or are based off of flat values. Below is a list of affected abilities: Bitter Harvest and its morphs, Death Simes and its morphs, Dragon Blood and Green Dragon's Blood, Battle Roar, Killer's Blade, Mark Target and its morphs, Siphoning Strikes and its morphs, Repentance, Blood Magic, Dark Exchange and its morphs, Summon Unstable Clan Fear, Special Activate, Bond with Nature, Arctic Wind and its morphs, Bone Goliath, Absorb Missiles, previously known as Absorb Magic, Consuming Trap, Undaunted Command, Unflinching Rage, Resourceful, Drain Essence and its morphs, Feed, Vampire Synergy, and Hircine's Bounty and its morphs. The abilities listed below now properly use Precise Strikes to scale rather than Elfborn, since they are stamina abilities. This is also a great change. Leeching Strikes, Killer's Blade, Dark Exchange and Dark Conversion, Ruinous Scythe, Absorb Missiles, and Draining Shot. Players sourced Oblivion damage now deals its damage based on the target's maximum health with a maximum damage threshold to prevent them from dealing obscene damage against elite type enemies. Oblivion damage continues to bypass positive and negative bonuses and cannot be blocked or shielded. So decrease health, this is the Oblivion damage enchant. The max health percent these enchants deal will now only scale with the enchantment's quality, common, uncommon, epics, etc. But their maximum damage will scale in the traditional sense, where the value is based on your enchantment level and quality. The maximum bonus of health percentage these enchantments can do is 3.75% at legendary quality, CP 160. That means the maximum damage they can deal is 4,875 damage, and that is on a two-handed weapon infused. So it's pretty high, but at the same time it kind of alleviates the fact of the loss of damage with the bleeds. Slowed Semblance, this now deals 3% of the target's max health per tick up to a maximum. The health percentage it deals is now static, while the maximum damage is based on your item set's average level and quality. The maximum damage it can deal is 3,000 of Oblivion damage per tick. I'm sorry, I have to say this, that's awesome. Night Slayer, this set can now proc on any target instead of only players. It continues to deal 8% of the target's max health with fully charged heavy attacks. The maximum damage dealt with this scale based on the average item set, up to a maximum of 8,000 Oblivion damage. And they do kind of go over why they did this stuff, but I'm not even going to go over that. If you guys want to read these are in the description below. You can find a link to the patch notes. So, fixed an issue causing some players to not be visible to fellow group members. The player-sourced Oblivion damage will no longer bypass immunities on bosses. Block mitigation now has a cap of 90%. This was done to prevent situations where you could reach 100% damage mitigation, which is not okay. Okay? So this is really, I like that they did this, that they put a cap on block mitigation. So this way players cannot get 100% damage mitigation. This is awesome. Buffs and debuffs. Major heroism. Fixed an issue where some sources of major heroism would stack with one another, including Hanu's Compassion and the Last Stand passive. Minor lifesteal. The heal from this bonus will now use the activator's highest critical strike chance rather than only spell crit, which is good. Dragon Knight changes. So a lot of things happen to class abilities. So we're going to start here with Dragon Knight. Ardent Flame, Searing Heat, rank 2 of this passive will now increase the duration of your affected abilities by 4 seconds, up from 2. It also increases the damage dealt of the abilities by 10%, up from 3%. And it kind of goes over why these changes were done to ensure these abilities keep up with our current Daunt standards and to help emphasize the Dragon Knight's more attrition-based combat style. Combustion, they decreased the cooldown from this passive to 2 seconds from 5 seconds. This was done to alleviate many of the duration-based ability cost increases, as well as helping the passive synergize with more build customization, such as using the charged trait. Fiery Breath. Increase the cost of this ability to 2808 from 2700, and they decrease the dot damage per ticks by approximately 15%. Lava Whip, Molten Whip. Reduce the stacking spell damage bonus from this passive to 75 at rank 4 from 125. Searing Strike. Fixed an issue where the visual effects from this ability in this force would fail to apply if the target was blocking. The cost increased the cost to 2160 from 1350, and they increased the dot damage by approximately 26% per tick. Earthen Heart, Ash Cloud. They decreased the healing of this ability in sports by approximately 30%, increased the cost of all morphs by 5670 from 4590, and the Cinderstorm. This morph is now 50% stronger than the base ability, which will result in approximately 1% heal reduction comparatively, and Eruption reduced the damage over time by approximately 30% per tick. It is still a very good skill. Corrosive Armor, the penetration granted from this ability now only applies to the ability itself and direct damage attacks or channeled attacks like Flurry. If you would like more insight on this change, please read the developer comment under the two-handed onslaught changes, which has similar adjustments. Petrify. They increased the cost of this ability in Morphs to 4,050 from 2,970. The ability no longer ranks up in cost reduction, but instead ranks up in 1.1% damage per rank. They reduced the range of the ability in Morph to 7 meters from 8 meters, and Shattering Rocks, they fixed an issue where the heal from this ability was missing a previous rank up, which will result in approximately a 3% increase in the healing. Nightblade. Assassination. Grim Focus. Fixed an issue where the Spectral Bow from this ability in its Morphs could consume all of your stacks, even if you failed to fire the projectile. They reduced the amount of mitigation from stacking bonus of these abilities to 2% from 3%. Mark Target, this ability and Reaper's Mark ability are now considered 1 negative effect instead of 3. Piercing Mark will count as 2 due to the reveal aspect. The conditional if the target dies bonus from this ability and its morphs will no longer proc when using on pets. Teleport Strike, Lotus Fan. Decrease the damage per tick of the dot by approximately 22% and fixed an issue where the final tick was not being affected by minor vulnerability. Shadow, Concealed Weapon. Fixed an issue where casting this ability from crouch would apply the stun to your target, but not animate the stun. Path of Darkness, Twisting Path. They decreased the damage per tick by approximately 14%. Refreshing Path. They fixed an issue where this ability could heal you twice per tick after the first heal applied, increasing the healing per tick by approximately 29%. Note that the heal will be stronger than Twisting Path's damage potential because Twisting also grants increased area coverage. Whew. Shadow Cloak. Fixed an issue where this ability and Shadow Disguise Morph could fail to cast if you had Prevent Attacking Innocence turned on. This ability in the Shadow Disguise Morph now lasts 3 seconds at base, but are no longer affected by Dark Veil passive. This was done to help low-level characters utilize the skill. They increase the cost of the Shade to 4,050 from 2,700. Dark Shade, they reduce the damage per hit of Corrosive Flurry by approximately 9%. The area attack Corrosive Slash now deals the same damage as the normal attack instead of dealing 20% bonus damage. Shadow Image, your Shadow Image has gotten its misguided protective nature and will now once again allow you to teleport to it when it is on a destructible piece of terrain. Yeah, we get it. Siphoning Drain Power Extraction. This morph no longer increases damage dealt of the attack, but instead reduces the weapon damage of enemies hit by 200 weapon damage for 8 seconds. Sap Essence increases the healing of this ability by 23.3% since it was missing a rank up progression, and was reduced by 20% if you fail to hit a target with the damage of this ability. This also fixes the issue where casting this ability in rapid succession while hitting no targets could decrease the heal by 20% per cast until it reached minus 100% and stopped healing. Cripple, they decrease the cost of this ability to 2970 from 3240 and increase the damage approximately by 17% per tick. Crippling Grasp, they increase the initial hit damage by approximately 37%, but decrease the damage by approximately 2%. Really interesting change with the Crippling Grasp and stuff. Sorcerer, Dark Magic, Crystal Shard, decrease the base cost of this ability in its morphs to 2970 and decrease the damage by approximately 10%. Crystal Blast, the AoE portion of this ability now deals the same damage as the initial hit. Crystal Fragments, they increase the bonus damage dealt of this proc by approximately, or by 33% from 20 to retain the damage of this proc. Daedric Summoning, Conjure Ward, they reduce the shield side of this ability and in the Empowered Ward morphs by approximately 18% and increase the cost of this ability in Hardened Wards to 4320 from 3510. These changes were done to make them more comparable to the damage shield burst heal standard. They increased the shield size limit of this ability and Empowered Ward to 50% of their max health from 40%. Hardened Ward is increased to 60% from 50%. It would like additional insight to these changes. Please read the developer comments under Light Armor Annulment changes, which have similar adjustments. Empowered Ward, the final cost of this ability is 3780, and it no longer gains 1.1% shield size per rank, and already has a cost reduction rank up. Hardened Ward reduced the shield size of this ability by approximately 9%. Rebate. Fixed an issue where this passive would dismount you if it procced. Summon Unstable Familiar. They decrease the special ability of this summon and Volatile Familiar to 2808 from 3510. They increase the damage per tick by approximately 8% of the base value, but reduce the damage per tick of Volatile Familiar by 3% since it was using the wrong rank up. Unstable Clan Fear. Reduce the healing granted from the special activation of this ability by approximately 14% to ensure it is in line with other burst heals such as Rush Ceremony and Dragon's Blood. Summon Winged Twilight. The zap and kick attack from the Twilight and its morphs will now do the same damage to help reduce volatility and performance. They reduce the damage of the Winged Twilight and the Twilight Matriarch by approximately 69% per hit. The Summoned Twilight Tormentor reduced the damage dealt by the Twilight Zap Kick by approximately 35%. The attacks will now rank up 1.1% in damage rather than 5%. Storm Calling. Bolt Escape. This ability in this morph's stuns can no longer be blocked. And they give a description or a reason why, but I'm not going to get into it. Bolt Escape Fatigue morph reduced the ramping cost increase from using Bolt Escape or its morphs to 33% per stack from 50%, so it operates closer to roll dodge. Overload. The hitbox of this ability's heavy attacks is now properly updated to fighting dragons. Fixed an issue where the heavy attack adjustment from these abilities was not gaining the 70% damage increase from heavy attacking off-balance enemies, and the heavy attack from this ability and its morphs can no longer be interrupted. Lightning Splash. They decrease the cost of this ability to 3024 from 3510 and decrease the damage per tick by approximately 37%. Liquid Lightning, the morph, no longer increases the damage per rank, and now lasts 9 seconds, ranking up to 12 seconds at rank 4. This does make Liquid Lightning do similar damage, but not the same as what it did before. Okay. Surge. So these are the morphs, Critical Surge and Power Surge. So Critical Surge, they increase the healing granted from this morph by 10%. Power Surge, this morph now grants its healing to up to 6 targets, but will no longer trigger off critical, will trigger off critical heals rather than critical damage. The cooldown is 3 seconds rather than 1 to ensure it offers similar healing to other AoE heals over time. Don't like it, but hey, what can I say? Alright, Templar, Adric Spear, Puncturing Strikes, reduce the cost of this ability to 2700, Biting Jabs retains the 15% cost reduction. The ability in its morphs will now use an older version of camera controls predating the adjustments of Murkmire. This was done to prevent many of the errors occurring explicitly with gamepad mode. Spear Shards decrease the cost of this ability to 3024 from 3240. And decrease the dot damage of Spear Shards and Lumina Shards by approximately 37% per tick, and Blazing Spear by approximately 42% per tick. This is going to be crazy. Spear Wall, they increase the duration of minor protection from this ability to 3 to 6 seconds, from 1.5 to 3 seconds. This is a good change. I can't say how much of a good change that is. Dawn's Wraith, Eclipse. They reworked this ability in its morph so you no longer envelop your target in a sphere of darkness for 4 seconds, which harms them anytime they use direct damage attacks. These abilities will now only be active on one target at a time. The first attack causes the sphere to hinder them, reducing their movement speed by 30% for 4 seconds. The second attack causes the sphere to entangle them, immobilizing them for 3 seconds. The third attack causes the sphere to smother them, stunning them for 3 seconds, and this effect can occur once every second. Note that the sphere can no longer be CC broken early, but can be cleansed. Total Dark Morph. Rename this morph to Living Dark. Now you envelop yourself in darkness for 4 seconds, which protects you anytime enemies hit you with a direct damage attack. They are immobilized for 3 seconds and you are healed. The heal value will be decreased by approximately 66% compared to the original value, but can now occur half second rather than every 0.75 seconds. Unstable Core, each time the sphere activates on the attacker, they will take damage. This damage increases based on the stage of the sphere it is currently in. They do give a description or developer comment here. I'm not going to go over it, but let's just say they have their own reasons for this. Solar Flare, they increase the damage of this ability and Dark Flare morph by approximately 4%. Solar Barrage, they decrease the damage of this morph by approximately 33% per tick. That kind of irritates me. I still like the ability. Sunfire, reduce the cost of this ability to 2376 from 2700. Increase the dot damage by approximately 17% per tick, but reduce the initial hit damage by approximately 17%. Restoring Light, Backlash, Purifying Light, decrease the healing done per tick by approximately 29%. That irks me. Restoring Light's Cleansing Ritual, they increased the healing. I think Backlash, I don't think is a Restoring Light. I think this is one that's in the middle tree, and I think they got that screwed up. Cleansing Ritual, increase the healing per tick of this ability and its morphs by approximately 95%. Increase the cost of these abilities to 4860 from 4320, and note that these abilities continue to only take once every 2 seconds instead of the standard 1 second. This is due to the multifaceted operational power this ability boasts. Ritual of Retribution. This morph no longer states it grants additional modifiers to the damage and healing, but instead deals damage for the identical coefficient of the heal. So Ritual of Retribution does equal damage that it does to healing. Restoring Issue, fixed an issue where the minor endurance and intellect from this ability and its morphs were stacking with other sources. Rush Ceremony, Honor the Dead, fixed an issue where this ability would cause animation stutters stutters when attempting to cast an ability on a target who was using Misform or its morphs. Warden, Animal Companion, Advanced Species, reduce the damage increase per Animal Companion ability to 2% from 3%. Feral Guardian, they fixed an issue where the Grizzly's attacks could become desynced or stuck after using Crushing Swipe. This applies to all versions of the Grizzly. This will result in higher damage per second for the Grizzly since it will be able to properly perform its next action more frequently. Swarm, they increase the cost of this ability to 2,700 and increase the damage per tick by approximately 17%. Green Balance, Healing Seed, Budding Seeds. This morph now introduces a heal over time while the area of effect grows. If the ability is consumed early, the heal over time is also consumed. Nature's Grasp, decrease the heal over time from this ability and its morphs by approximately 24% per tick. And Bursting Vines, increase the burst heal by approximately 13%. Winter's Embrace, Arctic Wind, updated the healing from this ability and its morphs to happen faster and focus more on the initial heal rather than the heal over time. The initial heal now scales out 25% of your max health, up from 15%. The heal over time remains at 3% of your max heal, but happens every second for 5 seconds instead of every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Icy Escape fixed an issue where the synergy from this was being properly recognized by conditional bonuses such as when activating a synergy. Impaling Shards cost increased the cost of this ability to 4,536 from 3,510 and increased the damage per ticks by approximately 9%. Winter's Revenge morph, they decreased the damage per ticks by approximately 29%. Alright. Continuing on now to weapon skills. Two-handed Berserking Strike. This ability and its morphs will now deal damage in a 5-meter radius if the initial hit successfully hits. Note that the initial hit can be dodged since the initial attack is not an AoE. Onslaught. This morph no longer refunds ultimate cost if you gain a killing blow with it. Instead, it converts the physical and spell resistance into physical and spell penetration for your direct damage attacks and increases the duration from 8 seconds to a maximum of 12 seconds. It also no longer ranks up in 1.1% per rank. Cleave, Carve. Reduce the damage over time from this ability by approximately 9%. Critical Charge, Crit Rush. They increase the damage bonus scaling of this ability to 50% from 40%. Stampede. This morph no longer snares enemies. Instead, it now crushes the earth beneath them, or beneath you, upon reaching your target, causing area damage to happen every second for an 8-second duration. This ability is balanced around our AoE dot standards. Executioner, increase the execute modifier of this ability to 400% from 350. Heavy Weapons, the Axe Bleed from this ability now ticks every second instead of every 2 seconds and has its total damage increased by approximately 24%. That's going to make up some difference in the loss of bleed damage. They reduce the duration of this ability and its morphs from momentum to 20 seconds from 30 seconds. They reduce the cost to 3780, and the ability and its morphs will no longer heal over time to you, but instead will grant minor endurance for the duration of the major brutality. Forward Momentum, this morph now reduces the cost as the ability ranks up. And Rally, they increase the baseline heal from this ability by 100%, but reduce the maximum scaling to 300% from 564. And the heal will now require the full 20-second duration to reach the maximum bonus instead of reaching its maximum bonus at 70% of the way through. I'm not happy, but hey, what can I do? Uppercut, reduce the cast time of this ability and its morphs to 0.8 seconds from 1 second to help its reliability when being used as a fast combat and melee range, and they reduce the cost to 2,700. They also increase the damage from this ability by approximately 9%. It's interesting. It does a lot more damage. One-handed and shield got some big changes. So defensive posture, they reworked this ability and its morphs into a damage shield rather than a weird buff. These abilities no longer passively reduce the cost of block or increase the amount of damage you can block while they are slotted. They reduce the duration of the bonus from this ability to 6 seconds from 30 seconds, and increase the cost to 4320 from 2430. The damage shield scales off 30% of your maximum health, similarly to other damage shields like Bone Shield and Sun Shield. The ability will continue to reflect once, but will now reflect any projectile rather than only spell projectiles. Reflecting the attack does not consume the shield. Defensive stance. This is the... So they changed the two morphs at defensive stance and absorb magic. Defensive stance, this ability no longer stuns the target if they are successfully reflect an attack at them. Instead, the morph reduces the passive, which now increases to a maximum of 10% block mitigation and cost reduction. Absorb magic. This morph is now called Absorb Missile because it can absorb any ranged attack instead of just magical ones, reduce the damage shield size to 30% from 50%, and increase the heal granted from the absorbed ranged attack by approximately 29%, and will no longer remove the shield. Fortress. Now this is the passive. Increase the cost reduction bonus from this passive to 15% from 10% to match the stamina weapon standards. Low Slash, they reduce the damage dealt from this ability in Heroic Slash morph by approximately 31%. These two abilities will no longer snare targets. Sorry, had to yawn. Heroic Slash. The minor heroism granted from this morph will now last 12 seconds, up from 9 seconds, to better match the duration of other bonuses. So, Deep Slash. This is the great one. This ability now hits all targets in a 6 meter radius or 6 meter radius of your target instead of only 2 targets in a 5 meter radius. This morph now deals the same damage to all targets hit, and now deals our AoE damage standard. This morph also retains its 30% snare. Deep Slash definitely got some major improvements, and I love the changes. Power Bash. This ability is now considered a spammable attack, and adjustments have been made to properly place it in that category. The ability no longer stuns at base. They increase the damage dealt by all versions of this ability by approximately 94%. They reduce the cost to 2,700 from 3,870. Reverberating Bash morph. This morph retains the stun with a max duration of 3 seconds, but no longer applies major defile to the target. That sucks. The initial hit damage is now halved, and will now deal the other half of the damage when the stun ends. If the target is CC immune, it will gain the other half of the damage. It will not gain the other half of the damage. Power Slam. Rework the passives this ability grants. The passives granted is now called Symmetry, whatever, because you're an angry person when you get hit. So Resentment, activates after blocking an attack and grants you 5% additional damage on your next Power Slam attack. The bonus stacks 10 times and lasts 5 seconds, but you can only gain 1 stack every 250 milliseconds to match the cooldown of block's cost cadence. So, alright, Puncture. Major changes to Puncture. So first, they reduce the damage dealt from this ability in its force by approximately 37%, but they reduce the cost to 1350 from 1701. They increase the duration of Major Fracture to 15%, up from 12% to match the taunt duration. And Ransack. This morph no longer grants minor ward and resolve. It only did ward, by the way. It didn't do resolve. And instead it grants minor protection for the 15 seconds. This is great. Pierce Armor morph. The major breach from this morph now also lasts 15 seconds. So that's really good changes there. Shield Charge, Shield Assault, increase the size of the shield. The shield size from this ability by 25%. This thing actually gets a really nice shield now. Invasion Morph, they reduce the maximum bonus of the stun to 50% from 88%, and the stun will now last 6 seconds, down from 7.52 seconds. Shield Wall fixed an issue where if you were holding block while casting the ability, you were unable to activate ground target abilities. Dual Wield. Dual got a lot of changes, Blade Cloak being one of them. So this ability is shifted into an AoE dot category, then rather than focusing on being a buff first. So they decreased the duration to 8 seconds from 15 seconds. They reduced the cost to 3,024, and they decreased the damage per tick by approximately 5%, but increased the tick frequency to 2 seconds from 3 seconds. Quick Cloak, on top of gaining major expedition for seconds, this morph now also extends the duration to 10 seconds from 8 seconds, which ranks up to 12 seconds. So Quick Cloak has a longer duration, and they get that major expedition. And in the Deadly Cloak, this morph no longer increases the damage per tick, but instead deals damage every second. So this is, the Deadly Cloak is a lot more powerful when it comes to damage over time. Quick Cloak is really nice because it has a longer duration. Heavy Attack. Fixed an issue where you could remain in stealth or invisible after landing a dual wield heavy attack. Alright. Hidden Blade. Reworked this ability from a ranged spammable into a utility skill. Don't ask me why, they just did. Increase the cost to 3780 from 2970. Reduce the range to 22 meters from 28 meters. And reduce the damage dealt by approximately 25%. This ability will now interrupt the target if they are casting an attack. So if they're casting an ability, it works the same as like Venom Arrow. You'll be able to interrupt them, which is really nice. Now the two morphs also got hit. Shrouded Daggers, this ability no longer deals increased damage per bounce, but can interrupt any target hit, which is great. And the ability will now only mark the initial target instead of any enemy with the bounce. Each hit does our AoE damage standard. And then Flying Blade, this ability, or this morph, allows you to reactivate the ability free of cost on a marked target, which causes you to jump to that target and gain major brutality for 30 seconds. This ability is off the global cooldown as well. So I really like that. Lacerate increased the size of this ability and its rend morph to 8 by 8 meters from 8 by 7, and they fixed an issue where the heal from all of the abilities could critically strike. Now, the Thrive in Chaos morph reduced the base damage done by this morph by approximately 3% from 5%, and the morph no longer increases the damage dealt by 1.1 per rank on the dot, but instead increases the damage done bonus by 1% per rank. And the morph also converts the attack into a conal attack, which covers a much larger area. So Thrive in Chaos became an AoE damage over time, which is awesome. Alright, Twin Blade and Blunt. The Axe Bleed from this passive now ticks every second instead of every 2. Increase the total damage by approximately 24%. And Twin Slashes. Increase the damage over time from this ability and its morphs by approximately 37%. Bow changes. Poison Arrow. Increase the cost to 2,700 on all morphs. Decrease the initial hit damage by approximately 17% on all morphs. And increase the damage over time by 78% per tick. Venom Arrow. This ability now ranks up in cost reduction rather than 1% damage, with the final base cost of 2430. And then Poison Injection, they reduce the execute modifier of this morph to 100% from 2600%. Or, yeah, or 2006, or 260%, sorry. And I'm sorry I keep clearing my throat. Let me grab a drink real quick. Alright, Rapid Fire. They increase the channeled damage from this ability in the Toxic Barrage morph by approximately 11% to reduce channel time to 4 seconds from 4.1. Toxic Barrage removed the delay and reduced the damage of the dot by approximately 6%, so it properly deals half the damage of the channeled attack. Ballista reduced the duration of the turret to 5 seconds from 5.5 and fixed an issue where it was double dipping in rank progression. This will result in minor damage decrease. Scattershot. This ability is now part of the utility category, with the bow changes affect all three versions of this ability. So they increase the cost to 3780, reduce the damage dealt by 10%, reduce the range to 22 meters from 28, increase the knockback to 8 meters. Magnum Shot. This morph no longer knocks the caster back. Instead, it deals 20% more damage than the other morph and reduces the cost to 3510. Dreading Shot. The heal from this ability will now trigger upon dealing damage rather than when the target is knocked back. Also decrease the heal by approximately 20%. Snipe. They increase the damage by approximately 9% for this ability in its morphs. Volley. This ability in its morphs now deal damage every second rather than half second, and increase the damage per tick by approximately 11%, which will result in an overall damage loss. Reduce the cost to 2808 from 3510, and the range of this the range on this morph is now 28 meters, or the range on all morphs. Sorry. Arrow Barrage. This morph no longer extends the duration, but increases the damage per tick by approximately 20%. Endless Hail. This morph no longer grants cost reduction, but now lasts 9 seconds and ranks up to 12 at rank 4, rather than gaining 1.1% damage per tick. Destructive Staff got some major changes too. Destructive Touch. They redesigned this ability in its morphs to function as a dot rather than a utility skill. They reduced the cost to 2,700 from 4,050. They reduced the initial hit damage by approximately 17%, but increased the dot by approximately 167% per tick. This ability no longer grants additional bonus depending on the staff you are using. The ability now gains 1.1% damage and rank for the entire ability. And they reduce the range to 15 meters from 17 meters. Destructive Reach. This morph retains its unique functionality for each elemental staff type you choose, but no longer deals damage over time. Flame Clinch knocks the target back and stuns them for the duration. Frost Clinch immobilizes the target, and Shock converts the attack into an AoE explosion that deals our AoE damage standard. Destructive Reach. This morph increases the range to 28 meters and reduces the cost to 2430 at rank 4. So this makes, like, Destructive Reach is still, I don't know why they gave it the same name. It's Destructive Reach and Destructive Touch, I think. Or this is Destructive Touch, this is Destructive Reach. So Destructive Touch now gains these functions, while Destructive Reach gains those functions. Okay, Force Shock. Increase the damage of this ability in its morphs by approximately 11%. They also increase the chance to apply elemental status effects to 10% from 3 second from per hit from 3%, since each hit is a direct damage attack. Crushing Shock. This ability no longer ranks up in damage, but instead decreases the cost down to 2430. Force Pulse. This morph no longer ranks up in damage of the initial hit, but instead ranks up in the cleave damage it deals, also increasing the damage of the cleave attack by approximately 172%. Pulsar. Reduce the duration of the minor mangle from this ability, applied to 7 seconds from 30 seconds, which ranks up to 10 seconds. The morph now also increases the chance of applying elemental type status effects by 15% from 5%. Tri-Focus fixed an issue where this passive was not activating the area effect damage while using a heavy attack with a lightning staff. Wall of Elements. They increase the duration of this ability to 8 seconds from 6 seconds. The abilities will now rank up in damage per rank rather than cost reduction. They decrease the cost of 3,024. And they decrease the damage per tick by approximately 33%. So, the two morphs. Elemental Blockade. They increase the duration of this ability to 9 seconds, up from 8, which ranks up to 12 seconds. It also no longer reduces in cost per rank. Unstable Wall. This morph no longer reduces in cost per rank, but increases the explosion damage. They increased the damage of the explosion by approximately 94% and fixed an issue where the final dot was not being consumed by the explosion. Restoration, Staff, Blessing, and Protection. They reduce the cost of this morph by this morph to 3,510 from 3,780. They increase the healing of all abilities by approximately 10%, and Blessing of Restoration. They increase the healing of this ability by approximately 3% since it was missing a rank up, and the ability now lasts 16 seconds instead of 15 seconds. And then Combat Prayer, this ability no longer ranks up 1.1% healing efficiency, but instead reduces the cost as it ranks up. The ability's Minor Berserk will no longer hit pets since they gain your Berserk. Force Siphon. This ability and its morphs no longer have a cast time or a cost since they are purely debuff skills, such as weakness to elements, and this is awesome. I'm sorry, Force Siphon just got a major changes, and I love these changes. So the duration of this ability now begins 18 seconds, which ranks up to 24 seconds, and both morphs will rank up to 30 seconds in total. They fixed an issue where this ability would aggro your target, thank God. And then Quick Siphon, since there is no cast time, this ability now grants a new morph effect, triggering the minor lifesteal debuff. Will also grant the activator Minor Expedition for 4 seconds. Grand Healing converted this ability into a true AoE hot rather than a hybrid spammable hot. They increased the duration from 3 seconds to 8 seconds, but you have one active. You can only have one active at a time. That's per healer, by the way. So you can actually have 2 of these out per healer. They also reduced the healing protect by approximately 44%. They reduced the cost to 2808 from 3510, and Healing Springs. This ability now grants 30 magicka every time it heals an ally, rather than restoring 330 for up to 3 allies healed by the initial hit. This will result in a higher return if you hit all 6 targets for the full duration, but will require more coordination to obtain. Illustrious Healing. This ability continues to increase the duration. The new duration is 9 seconds, which ranks up to 12 seconds. It also increases the healing of the ability per tick by 50%. So Illustrious Healing is more intended for a heal over time, where Healing Springs is a utility resource over time plus a heal. So you've got 2 options here, and both are great. Regeneration. They increase the healing per tick by approximately 98%, but reduce the duration to 10 seconds, and now only also hits 1 ally per cast. Now there's 2 morphs. Rapid Regeneration. This morph now doubles the frequency but halves the duration. So it goes from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. That means you get healed for more, quicker over time, but it only hits 1 target. Mutagen, on the other hand, they changed it completely. This morph no longer attempts to grant affected targets a burst heal and purge if they are under 25% health when triggered. It will now heal up to 2 additional targets in your radius, and is called Radiating Regeneration to better showcase its ability to diverge to targets. And they do give a developer's comment I am going to read. It says, this change was done to better help healers grant high mobility targets healing with the skill, and to tone down the incredibly powerful ability to come back from the brink of death passively. So, Steadfast Ward, they increased the base shield size of this ability by approximately 14%, but reduced the bonus scaling to 100% from 300% to better align with other abilities, and reduce the polarizing effectiveness it has. Healing Ward, this morph will no longer heal you after the shield ends, because the shield hardly remains to do that. The morph will now heal you once every second for 33% of the remaining shield size instead, to ensure that the gain effectiveness out of it. The heal can critically strike due to the fact it is a shield itself, not the shield itself cannot crit, but the heal can. Alright, light armor changes. Annulment. Reduce the shield size of this ability to morph by approximately 9%. Increase the shield size limit of this ability to harness magic to 50% of your max health from 40%, and dampen magic to 60% from 50%. They do explain why, but I want to read this next part. So harness magic, this morph no longer returns 3% of your magicka when absorbing spell attacks. Instead, it restores 5% of the ability's cost whenever it absorbs damage. Note the value continues to increase per light a piece worn, and can still occur up to 3 times per cast. They increase the bonus modifier per piece of light armor worn for the magic return to 33% at rank 4 from 6%. Note the increase remains to be on 5% of the ability's cost. So each piece of light armor will increase the return from 5% to 6.65%. Medium armor, evasion. Reduce the cost of this ability to 32.13 from 36.72. Elude. Each piece of medium armor now increases the duration of major evasion by 2 seconds, up from 1 second. Elude also grants major expedition whenever you take a direct area of effect damage based on each piece of medium armor worn. Shuffle. Increase the snare and immobilization immunity granted per piece of medium armor to 1 second from 0.5 seconds. Heavy armor, immovable. Rework this ability as a morphs and shifted names around to slightly more appropriate. This ability is now called Unstoppable. They reduce the cost to 37.80 from 45.90, which gets a 15% cost reduction, taking it to 32.13. Increase the duration of the CC granted to 6 seconds while the CC immunity persists. You are now 65% movement speed reduced. This cannot be stopped, but the power comes at a great cost. Immovable Brute. They renamed this morph to Unstoppable Brute. It no longer passively reduces the cost of CC break while slotted, but instead reduces the cost of CC break while the Major Warden Resolve are active. They increase the cost reduction per piece of heavy armor to 5% from 4%. This morph also gains cost reduction as it ranks up. Unstoppable, they renamed the morph to Immovable. This morph no longer increases the duration of the ability. Instead, while the snare persists, it increases the amount of damage you can block by 5% per piece of heavy armor worn, but also increases the snare potency by 5%. If you are in all 7 pieces of heavy armor, you will truly be immovable, unless elite difficulty enemies hit you with a special move. They don't care if you think you're immovable. Alright, World Skill, Soul Magic, Soul Strike. Increase the damage per tick from this ability and its morphs by approximately 22%, but increased the time it takes to deal damage to 5 seconds from 2.9 to help reduce the burst nature of the ultimate. This also means the CC immunity granted from activating this ability lasts 5 seconds instead of 2.9. They also increased the reveal of the ability and its morphs to 3 seconds from 2 seconds, and they increased the cost to 175 up from 100. Shatter Soul. This morph's explosion no longer requires the target to die in order to occur. Instead, when the channel is completed or ends early, it will detonate. Reduce the damage of the explosion by 37% and fix an issue where the explosion was not applying the reveal effect to targets hit as the tooltip implied. Soul Trap. This ability now has been restructured to fit our single target dot standards. Since this ability is the first ability you have access to, it will dynamically scale with your offensive stats with some extra detection abilities. If your weapon damage is higher than your it will deal physical damage, but if your spell damage is higher, it will deal magic damage. Increase the damage per tick by approximately 161%. Remove the 2-second delay from these abilities, and the ability and Consuming Trap will now only hit 1 enemy instead of up to 2. Fixed many visual errors with this ability. So Consuming Trap, this morph now restores 20% of your max health, magicka, and stamina, up from 10% when the target affected dies. The tooltip will state the actual return to help you visualize the weight of its true power. Soul Splitting Trap, this morph now converts the ability into an area of effect dot, hitting any target in an 8-meter radius around your original target. It deals approximately 33% less damage per tick. Alright, Vampire got some major changes. First off, they reduce the cost of Bat Swarm to 250 from 275. They increase the duration of this ability to 7 seconds from 5 seconds, and they increase the damage dealt of the damage over time by approximately 20% per tick. Devouring Swarm, they increase the cost of this ability to 250 from 200. The heal from this ability has been brought into standards, which will result in no real set percentage change in power due to the previous version having several issues with scaling with weapon damage scaling of this ability was approximately 800% weaker than the spell damage scaling, while the stamina scaling was 1500% weaker than the magicka scaling. The heal will now scale off your scale for half the damage base coefficient. Note, this does not mean that the heal is tethered to half of the damage dealt. Cloud Swarm. Increase the cost of this ultimate to 250 from 200. Reduce the damage of the clouding swarms activate. Materialize by approximately 6% per hit. Cloud Swarm's damage over time will no longer rank up in damage since Materialize already did. Note that due to the increase of the duration of the base ability, Materialize will also be activated 2 additional times. Drain Essence. They remove the 1 second delay of this ability in its morphs before it deals damage. The channel from this ability can no longer be dodged, and they reduce the damage per tick by approximately 11%, but the additional tick now deals results in increase of damage by approximately 89%. The ability in its morphs now heal up to 15% of your missing health per tick from 20 to retain the 60% of your missing health over 3 seconds. And Accelerating Drain, they increase the frequency of damage and healing this ability deals, resulting in a 1 extra tick of damage and healing. Misform, they reduce the cost of this ability and its morphs to 5130 from 5940. This ability now lasts 4 seconds at base, and the ability ranks up in cost reduction to a maximum of 4,860 at rank 4. Elusive Mix, they fixed an issue where major evasion from this ability would persist even after casting the channeled effect. And Baleful Mist, this ability no longer ranks up in cost reduction but gains a 1.1% damage per rank and increase the frequency of damage to 0.5 seconds from 1 second, but decrease the damage of the dot by approximately 30% per tick. Alright, Werewolf. Lots of changes in Werewolf. Hircine's Bounty. Increase the cost of this ability and its morphs by 25%. They reduce the healing to 37.5 of your max health from 45% of your max health, which is 25% stronger than standard 30%. Hircine's Rage. They increase the duration of Major Brutality to 30 seconds from 20 seconds at its final rank. And Hircine's Fortitude. This morph is now 25% stronger in heal potency compared to the base, which will result in approximately a 16% reduction in healing compared to the previous value. Infectious Claw, they increase this the cost of this ability and its morphs to 3442 from 3240. They increase the damage initial hit by 25% and reduce the damage over time of this ability by approximately 11% per tick. Piercing Howl, and reduce the cost of this ability to 2869 from 3510 and reduce the damage dealt by approximately 14%. Howl of Agony, this morph no longer ranks up, but instead increases the damage dealt on the feared target up to 33%. Pounce, they decrease the base cost of this ability to 4016 from 4050. Brutal Pounce, the AoE damage dealt from this morph now deals the same damage as the initial hit. Roar. Increase the cost of this ability to 4304 from 4163. Reduce the radius to 6 meters from 8 meters. And increase the duration of the fear to 4 seconds from 3.3 seconds at rank 4. All morphs now last 4 seconds in total duration. Deafening Roar. This ability now properly applies Major Fracture up to 6 enemies, regardless if they are feared or not. Ferocious War. This ability now ranks up in cost reduction rather than fear duration. The final cost is 4,003 or 34. I apologize for the yawning. Alright, Werewolves Transformation. Reduce the damage dealt by your light and heavy attacks with this ability in its morphs by approximately 17%. They increase the range of your light attacks from 7 meters from 5 meters, and the heavy attacks to 10 meters from 7 meters. This was done to help preserve the same distance for standard forms, since your character's size increase was not applying to the range of your abilities, causing your attacks to appear as if they lost range. This ability in Pack Leader Morph no longer apply bleed to enemies hit with light attacks or deal damage, area damage with heavy attacks. So the Direwolves can no longer be targeted or die. That's for the Pack Leader. And reduce the damage of the Direwolves' Gnash attack by approximately 700% and increase the frequency of the attacks speed to 2 seconds from 1 second. Gnash now applies minor maim to enemies hit for 4 seconds. They reduce the damage of lunge attack by approximately 6%. Lunge will now cast every 10 seconds rather than have a 25% chance every 3 seconds to cast. Lunge will now snare enemies for 30% for 4 seconds, and the Dire Wolves will now return to your side if you travel far enough away from them, since they are lost and confused without their leader of the pack. Werewolf Berserker. Increase the damage of the bleed from your light attacks by approximately 25%. They do give a comment here why they did this. I'm not going to read it, guys. You guys can check it out for yourselves. Changes to Fighters Guild. Fixed the issue where Bollarg and hulking werewolves were not being considered werewolves. For the Fighters Guild conditional bonuses, they are now. Circle of Protection. They reduce the cost of this ability in its morphs to 3902 from 7,987. This is great. They also fixed an issue with this ability in its morphs where you could not gain minor protection from this ability if you had minor endurance active prior to entering the area. Now, Turn Undead, this morph is now called Turn Evil and fears any enemy in the area upon cast rather than Turn Only Undead. And Ring Preservation, this morph no longer reduces the cost of roll dodge while in the area and is now considered a Kiss Curse or Double-Edged Sword morph instead. It heals up to 6 friendly targets, including yourself, and in the area every half second, and the heal is based on our AoE hot standards. They reduce the duration of the morph to 8 seconds from 20 seconds. So I'm not really concerned about this. I mean, I love the change, and it works out really well. The problem is that you got to cast it every 8 seconds. Dawnbreaker got some major changes. This ability and its source now all have a minor cast time to match their animation of slamming down. The Glorious Dawnbreaker canceling the ultimate will now not consume resources, and this cannot be bashed, interrupted from abilities. They increase the damage of the dot by 1.1% per rank. The ability in its morphs will no longer has a 6-person target cap, since the total area is smaller than other ultimates such as Dragon Leap or Permafrost. Flawless Dawnbreaker, this morph no longer increases your damage, weapon damage by 5% for slotted. Instead, it grants 300 weapon damage for 14 seconds, which ranks up to 20 seconds at rank 4. This morph also no longer increases the damage by 1.1% per rank. Dawnbreaker Smiting. This morph will now properly gain 20% of its damage increase, which will result in a 1% damage loss. Expert Hunter. Evil Hunter morph. Fixed an issue where this ability costs more than its original form. This morph no longer grants 25% reduced stamina cost of Fighter Guild abilities. Instead, it grants up to 25% damage dealt with non-ultimate Fighter Guild abilities. So this is actually a really nice change. And Camouflage Hunter, this ability will no longer cost more than the base form and no longer grants minor berserk from successful sneak attacks. It now grants minor berserk from dealing critical damage from an enemy's flank. They decrease the duration of minor berserk to 5 seconds from 10 seconds. And Silver Bolts, this ability has been brought into our spammable category and will be balanced as such. They increase the damage dealt by 12.5%. They reduce the cost to 2,700 from 3,500, and this ability no longer snares enemies hit, spin them crossbows. So Silver Shards, this ability now hits all nearby enemies to the original target instead of having a cap. The AoE damage dealt is now 25% weaker than the initial hit instead of 50%, and the AoE damage now ranks up to 1% strength per rank. Silverbolt's morph decreased the damage of this ability by approximately 25%, increased the cost to 3780 from 3510, but reduced the snare potency to 30% from 40%, and these changes will allow the ability to perform much closer to other gap closers and creator abilities. Alright, Trap Beast. They increase the duration of the damage over time from this ability in lightweight Beast Trap to 10 seconds up from 6 seconds. The minor force will now properly line up with the duration rather than being 2 seconds longer. They reduce the damage per tick by approximately 6% and reduce the duration of the immobilize on all morphs to 2 seconds. They reduce the cost to 3240 from 3780. And lightweight Beast Trap, this morph no longer ranks up in damage of the dot, but it instead reduces the cost as it ranks up to 2970. And then Rearming Trap Beast morph renamed it to Barb Trap, and this morph no longer places a new trap in the area of the original duration ends, but instead increases the duration of the dot applied up to 18 seconds at rank 4. The damage per tick has increased by approximately 33% since it was lower than the base morph. Mage's Guild. Major changes again. Entropy, they redesigned this ability in its morphs to operate as a dot rather than a strange hot dot buff hybrid it previously was. So increase the cost of these abilities to 2970 from 1620 at base. Entropy and Degeneration no longer heal over time. They increase the damage of all morphs by approximately 220% and decrease the duration to 10 seconds from 12 seconds. Major Sorcery remains at 20 seconds, and they fixed an issue where Major Sorcery was not increasing in duration with the Everlasting Magic passive. Alright, so Structured Entropy, this morph no longer grants max health for slotting. Instead, it now heals every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. And Degeneration, this morph no longer has a 15% chance to heal when you deal light or heavy attack to the target. Instead, it returns 100 magicka when you deal light attack or heavy attack damage while the dot persists. Also reduce the cost of this ability as it ranks up to 2700. Equilibrium Balance. The Ward and Resolve will now begin their duration at 22 seconds instead of 20 seconds. And at rank 4, with 2 points committed to Everlasting Magic, the duration will be a glorious 30 seconds rather than the insightful 27.6. Spell Symmetry, increase the cost reduction granted from this ability to 33% from 28% at rank 4. And then Fire Rune, they increase the damage of this ability in its force by 25% for the initial hit, but reduce the base cost to 3240 from 4050. Scalding Rune. Increase the damage over time of this morph by approximately 115% per tick. And Volcanic Morph, this morph no longer increases the duration of the stun as the ability ranks up, but instead it reduces the cost of the ability to 2970 at rank 4. Meteor, remove the 6-person target cap from this ability in its morphs since it covers a smaller area than the standard AoE ultimates. Reduce the damage over time from this ability by approximately 13% per tick, but increase the duration so we'll end with on a beautiful whole number when you have 2 points of Everlasting Magic. Fixed an issue where this ability in its morphs would fail to deal damage if your character died after casting Ice Comet. This morph will no longer rank up snare duration on the targets by the initial hit, but instead will increase the total damage dealt by 1.1% per rank. The 10% damage increase of this ability will now also applies to the dot as well. Alright, Seji Quarter, Meditate. Slightly reduce the healing and resource return from this ability in this morphs to land on whole numbers. Introspection, increase the healing of this ability by approximately 5%. Undaunted, Blood Altar. This ability in this morphs no longer have a cast time and now cost health rather than magicka. Overflowing Altar, this ability no longer attempts and fails to rank up in the healing and synergy provides, and instead reduces the cost as it ranks up. Blood Feast and Blood Funnel. These synergies will now properly use the activator's highest critical strike chance, rather than using spell critical. Blood Feast now heals 65% of the activator's max health at all ranks. Bone Shield. Increase the cost, base cost to 4320 from 3780, but applied the 15% stamina cost reduction it was missing, which will take the cost to 3672. Bone Shield will now properly rank in 1.1% shield size per rank, and Spike Bone Shield Morph. This ability's damage return can no longer self-perpetuate with other damage return procs, and will no longer remove the attack from sneak attacks before finishing the attack. They also increased the damage return to 60% from 33% to put it in better line with other morphs. And then Bone Surge, this ability will now rank up in 1.1% shield size rather than reducing the cost. Bone Wall and Spinal Surge. The synergies now affect up to 6 allies up from 4, and they reduce the cost or the size of the shield to 30% of the synergizer's max health from 50%. And then Inner Fire. Reduce the cost of this ability to 2,700 from 4,051. And increase the chance of applying the synergy to 50% from 25% for this and Inner Beast Morph. Inner Beast, this morph now also causes your targets to take 5% more damage from you while the taunt persists, and adds stamina cost reduction to the morph, taking the cost to 2295. This is going to be great for stamina taunts. Inner Rage, this morph now guarantees the synergy instead of increasing the chance. Necrotic Orb, they reduce the base cost of this ability in its morphs to 3780 from 4590. They reduce the damage per tick of this ability in Mystic Orbs morph approximately by 13%, but it can now deal damage every half second instead of every second. You can only have one orb active at a time, and they decrease the speed to 2 meters per second from 3 meters per second to help it deal damage or heal targets more reliably as the orb passes them. Energy Orb, they increase the healing per tick of this ability by approximately 20% since the morph only converted functionality without necessarily improving it. Healing Orbs, I don't know why they said that. Increase the healing per tick of this orb by approximately 7% and fix the issue where allies affected by the heal from this ability were unable to take damage from necrotic or mystic orbs from some players. Combustion and Healing Combustion. Synergies of the necrotic orbs and its morphs. These synergies will no longer remove their parent abilities when active. This means a single orb can now provide a synergy to anyone in its path and will not be removed for other players since it once it was activated. Okay, Radiate. This synergy now has a 1-second delay on its activation and reduced the damage of the dot by approximately 11%. I don't know where that came from, but okay. Spawn Broodlings, they reduce the initial hit of this ability and other versions of the morph by approximately 21%. The synergies now summon 1 spider for 10 seconds rather than 2 for 15 seconds, which will significantly reduce the damage dealt. Black Widows increase the damage of the poison applied by the spiders by approximately 65% to offset some of the damage loss of the base abilities. Note the synergy will still see the large efficiency loss. Trapping Webs. They reduce the cost of this ability and its force by approximately 15% since they were missing the standard. This ability now deals an initial hit of damage when they land at the target location, resulting in a approximate 75% damage increase for the caster, and fixed an issue where parts of the ability would fail if the caster was silenced. Alliance War. Caltrops. Reduce the cost to 2984 from 3510. Increase the snare potency to 50% from 30%. And they reduced the damage per ticks by approximately 60% and decreased the duration to 10 seconds from 12 seconds. These changes apply to all morphs. Caltrops now ranks up 1.1% in damage per rank rather than reducing the cost. Anti-Cavalry Caltrops reduce the base duration to 12 seconds, which ranks up to 15 seconds at rank 4. It also no longer increases in damage per rank. And Razor Caltrops, this ability no longer deals initial hit damage, but instead applies major fracture to enemies hit by the dot up to 4 seconds at rank 4. Magic Detonation reduce the cast time of this ability and the inevitable detonation morph to 1 second from 1.5 seconds. They increase the damage of all morphs by approximately 7% to ensure they deal our AoE damage standard. Reduce the base cost of all morphs to 3510 from 4050, and remove the maximum limit to the target scaling of these abilities so they may actually combat large groups of enemies for their intended design. Rapid maneuvers. They reduce the cost of this ability as far as to 6585 from 8100 for the 15% stamina cost reduction standard. This ability and its force will no longer remove themselves if you take an action such as healing or damage. Reduce the duration of the major expedition to 8 seconds from 30 seconds at rank 4. Note, it will continue granting major gallop for 30 seconds. Retreating maneuver, this ability no longer ranks up in duration. And charging maneuver, this morph no longer grants minor expedition after the major gallop ends or is reapplied. Instead, it grants minor expedition bonus alongside the major expedition bonus. This ability no longer ranks up in duration, but instead reduces the cost, and fixed an issue where minor expedition was ignoring ranged requirements and applying to allies in lands far, far away. Vigor adhered to the ability to standard AoE hot standards. They increased the duration to 6 seconds from 5 seconds, but decreased the tick frequency to 2 seconds from 1 second. They also increased the healing per tick by approximately 33% and reduced the cost to 2984 from 3511. Now the two morphs, Resolving Vigor, this morph doubles the frequency and halves the duration and increases the healing per tick by approximately 43%, but now only targets your character. So you can only apply Resolving Vigor to yourself. Echoing Vigor, this morph continues to increase the radius, but also increases the duration per rank up to 10 seconds at rank 4, allowing one additional heal tick. It also no longer ranks up 1.1% healing per rank. Warhorn, Sturdy Horn. This ability no longer extends the duration of the bonus or provides minor ward and resolve. Instead, it will grant a 15% worth of critical resistance to targets affected to operate as a counter to aggressive Warhorn. The major force from this ability now lasts 10 seconds at rank 4 rather than 9.5 begone duration based fractions. Emperor, you can no longer generate ultimate while in a transformation such as Bone Goliath or Werewolf while you are Emperor. Support Barrier. This ability in this morph will now affect up to 12 grouped allies instead of up to 6. Reviving Barrier, they reduce the heal tick by approximately 11%, reduce the duration of 15 seconds from 30 seconds, but increase the frequency of the tick to 1 second from 1.5 seconds, and added a 1 second delay to the first heal tick. Replenishing Barrier. The magic restored from this ability conditional requirements now restore a flat amount of flat amount of magicka rather than a percentage of your magicka, and restore is now 1,000 magicka at rank 4. They reduce the amount of ultimate restored to 4 from 6. Note, since this ability can now affect more targets, the total restore for both magicka and ultimate can potentially be higher. Alright, Guard. Reduce the cost of this ability, or the cost to activate this ability in its force to 3672 from 4320, since they were missing a 15% stamina cost reduction. Standard. Purge. This ability in its force will no longer reduce the duration of incoming negative effects. Increase the amount of negative effects instantly removed to 3 from 2, and this ability now ranks up in cost reduction, leading to a base cost of 7830 at rank 4. Efficient Purge. This ability now costs 5400 at rank 4, rather than 5130. And Cleanse, this morph no longer heals for 15% of the target's max health if a negative effect was removed, but instead heals for 7 to 10% of their max health per negative effect removed. Alright, Revealing Flare adjusted this ability to behave more closely to other reveals such as Mage Light and Expert Hunter. The flare now lingers in the area where cast for 5 seconds rather than being instantaneous. They increase the duration, or increase the base cost of 5,400 from 1889, which ranks down to 5130. And then Lingering Flare, this ability now lasts 7 seconds, down from 8, but ranks up in duration to 10 seconds at rank 4. Scorching Flare, rename this ability to Blinding Flare. This ability no longer damages enemies revealed, but stuns revealed enemies for 2 seconds, which ranks up to 4 seconds at rank 4. Siege Shield. This ability and its morphs now affect up to 12 allies instead of only 6. Reduce the base cost to 8,100 from 9,450. And Propelling Shield, reduce the cost to 7,830 from 8,496. And then Siege Weapon Shield. The protection of shield weapons will now apply to all friendly siege weaponry, increasing your own rather than their own only allies' siege. So they fixed an issue where the damage mitigation from the shield siege attacks on players was applying to anyone in the area instead of only you and the allied players. Now there was some itemization and item set changes. So certain item set source pets will no longer be filled with fear and dismay when you enter stealth, which would cause them to cease existing. They will now only disappear into the void when their time on earn has ended, death or duration ends. Alright. Consumables. Bloody Mara. Reduce the max health granted by approximately 14% and the max magic are granted by approximately 13%. This was done to retain the fact that drinks are meant to be slightly weaker than their food counterparts due to the special item sets and bonuses they key off of them. So, sorry. Glyph of Bashing. These enchantments will now grant weapon and spell damage to your bash instead of only weapon damage. Also increase the potency of these enchants by approximately 21%. Item sets. These are a lot of the item sets that got changes. So Adept Rider, the major evasion from this set will now properly apply to the area of effect damage, where all the nature of this set is now not ideal for its proc conditions, and we will investigate future adjustments for a future update beyond update 23. Affliction fixed an issue where the Befouled passive did not affect the Defile of this set. And then Briarheart, this set will now place an appropriate buff icon on your effects bar and character sheet. Cruel Flurry. This is the Maelstrom dual wield, by the way. So they reduced the amount of weapon and spell damage granted from the set to 1,000 from 2003. The bonus weapon and spell damage will now only apply to any target applied damage over time effect cast within 4 seconds of the bonus being applied, rather than being consumed on your next target applied damage over time effect. This will result in less total power from the set, while being easier to engage in a real-time combat with target swapping movement. Defensive position and perfected defensive position. They reduce the amount of magic restored if you failed to reflect or absorb a projectile with defensive posture or its morphs by 20%. Now, if I remember right, this is the I don't want to say it's the Black Prison. It could be the Asylum Sanctorium one too. All right, Ebon Armory. Reduce the max health bonus of this set to 1,000 from 1,118. So the only way Ebon Armory is going to be good for anybody, to be honest, is if you have it golded out. If you don't have it golded out, it's going to give out over less than 1,000 health. So it's not going to be as good as it could be. So, Eternal Hunt fixed an issue where weapon swapping would remove the ruin. False God fixed an issue where the magic return from this item set would fail if you were also wearing the perfected version. Gossamer, the major evasion of the set now will properly apply to area effect damage. Remove the 10% chance to proc, but reduce the duration of the bonus to 2 seconds from 6 seconds. And these changes were done to improve the use case of the set, while requiring a more constant rate of healing to retain it. Grace of Gloom, the major expedition or evasion from this set will now properly apply to area of effect damage. Remove the 10% chance to proc, but reduce the healing to 2,000 from 3440, and remove the hidden 500 millisecond cooldown for the heal proc. Hemjaw's Retribution, the major berserk granted from this set now lasts 5 seconds up from 3, but now only works on enemies who are actively in combat with. His Spark, the major evasion from the set will now properly apply to area of effect damage. Ice Furnace, this item set now grants spell damage rather than weapon damage for the force piece bonus. This is awesome. Krogs, the area effect for this ability will now properly update when fighting dragons. Kind's Kicks fixed an issue where the heal from this item set could critically strike. Merciless Charge increased the amount of ticks this weapon grants by 1, resulting in approximately 20% damage increase. This effect can trigger off each tick of Stampede's area of effect. Necropence fixed an issue where the bonus from this set was not applying to magic gained from necromantic pets. Now you can properly necro on your necro. Yay! Night Flame. This item set now has a 10% chance of proccing the healing up from 5. They increase the cooldown to 10 seconds from 6 seconds. And fixed an issue where this set could critically strike. Reduce the healing per tick by approximately 27%. If you guys don't know what this is Bogdan's Night Flame. Oblivion's Foe, this item, or this set now grants 1,000 weapon and spell damage to your soul trap abilities rather than increasing its damage by 100%. Pillar of Nirn, they increase the damage of the bleed by 25%, resulting in a 20% total damage increase of the entire set. Pirate Skeleton, reduce the duration of the proc from this set to 10 seconds from 12 seconds. And increase the cooldown to 20 seconds from 15. The minor defile is now major defile. Alright, Plague Doctors. They reduce the max health from this set to 3,000 from 4,000. Since this set has no additional requirements to justify an increase in stat density. Quick Serpent fixed an issue where the stamina return from this set would fail if you were also wearing Vicious Serpent. Roar of Alkosh, the area effect of this ability will now properly update when fighting dragons. Savage Werewolf, this set now ticks once every second for 4 seconds instead of every 2 seconds for 6. And will result in 1 additional damage tick. That is awesome. Sentinels, this set needed fixing and it got it. Finally, the Dwemer Spider spawned from this set will now always spawn on the target who produce the summon rather than only the caster. The spider is also now immobile and will no longer move once it has begun channeling its heal ability. They also reduce the healing per tick of this item set by approximately 5%, and they reduce the stamina per tick to 500 from 2,400. I don't know how I feel about it, but you know, I'll see. I'll be playing around with it on my healer, so. Shadow of the Red Mountain, they fixed an issue where if this set gained a killing blow, it would not grab a new target in the area. Spectre's Eye, the major evasion from the set will now properly apply to area effect damage. Increase the cooldown to 10 seconds from 6 seconds, but increase the duration to 5 seconds from 3 seconds. Stinging Slashes, this is one of the weapon sets. Increase the damage per bonus to 1,600 per tick from 1,350. Thunderous Volley, they increase the damage of this set to nearly double the original value. Since Volley and its morphs only tick every 1 second instead of every half second, the values are slightly less than double since they are now on prettier numbers. They fixed an issue where the bonus from the set would occasionally double dip and increase faster. It will now properly increase each tick of volley and its morphs after the first tick of damage is dealt, and they fixed an issue where Endless Hail was not getting the bonus of the set on the final tick. This item set will now retain its bonus if you bar swap before it can first register its damage. Rejoice, you no longer need to sit around twiddling your thumbs before continuing your rotation. Torig's Pact. This item set no longer increases the damage of Oblivion damage enchantments. It will still, however, decrease their cooldown. Twin Sisters. Increase the damage over time from this set by approximately 67%, but the dot now happens over 10 seconds instead of 8 seconds. And this is good for Twin Sisters. Veladrith's. This item set's proc can no longer hit the same monster multiple times. Warrior's Fury. This set now procs of taking any damage rather than only critical damage. Reduce the duration of the buff to 5 seconds from 6 seconds. The stacking bonus can now only occur once every half seconds, and they reduce the total number of stacks to 20 from 25, resulting in a 150 weapon damage reduction. Upon reaching 20 stacks, the bonus can no longer refresh, but will double its in duration. Weird Tree's Blessing. They fixed an issue where this set would proc and go on cooldown after attempting to purge an unpurgeable negative effect. Traits. Protective. Reduced the trait to 1190 physical and spell resistance at CP 160 legendary quality from 1844 to ensure its strength is similar to other jewelry traits. There is some base game changes with Alliance and PvP stuff. Battlegrounds got some changes. Volendrung got some changes. Some other things happen in combat and gameplay with monsters and monster abilities. Lots of changes there, but nothing I'm going to go over really. Crafting and economy stuff, lots of things have changed again. Or not changed, I should say, but got fixed and adjusted. Crown Store and Crown Crates updated in new preview models for the Crown Store to better represent products in the store. Newer icons for your items, yeah. Banished Cells 2 got some changes. Blessed Crucible, Dark Shade Caverns 1. Lots of other things here, and as I said, you guys can check out a lot of these changes if you want, coming through the patch notes that I've linked in the description below. But that is it for update 23 changes, guys. There is a lot of them, and honestly, to go over all of this in one video would take 2 or 3 hours, and I didn't want to do that. That's why I broke it up. So again, that is it for this video, guys. I hope you guys liked it, and that means you guys know what's coming next. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.